Good morning. It is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. You can now relax and be informed. Here is your daily bite of news. Justice Clarence Thomas swore in Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court on Monday evening. Wasting no time, Mr. Trump held an unusual nighttime swearing-in ceremony for Judge Barrett on the south lawn of the White House. The Senate confirmed Barrett with a 52-48 vote. All 45 Democrats opposed her confirmation. In a statement late Monday, the Biden campaign called the Barrett confirmation rushed and unprecedented. The Supreme Court said in a press release that Barrett will be able to start her new role on Tuesday. Under the court's usual practices, Justice Barrett cannot participate in cases that have already been argued. The court is scheduled to hear arguments on the Affordable Care Act a week after the election. The Trump administration is urging the court to declare the law invalid, including its protections for people with pre-existing health conditions. The Mississippi Attorney General, meanwhile, has pitched the court to take up her state's ban on abortions after 15 weeks. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden on Monday ruled out considering term limits for Supreme Court justices, an idea suggested by some who want to see changes to the High Court. "It's a lifetime appointment. I'm not going to attempt to change that at all," Biden told reporters in Pennsylvania. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Monday motioned for the Senate to adjourn until November 9th. The move shuts down the Senate from doing any legislative business, including reaching a deal on additional coronavirus aid and a stimulus package deal with Pelosi until after voters have cast their ballots. The Trump administration this week will announce a plan to cover the out-of-pocket costs of COVID-19 vaccines for millions of Americans who receive Medicare or Medicaid, likely to be announced by the Centers for Medicare and Services on Tuesday or Wednesday. Earlier this month, the administration struck a deal with CVS and Walgreens to administer an eventual vaccine with no out-of-pocket cost to seniors and health workers in long-term care facilities. More than 90,000 residents in Southern California's Orange County were ordered to evacuate on Monday as a wildfire exploded. As of Monday evening, more than 7,200 acres had burned, with 500 firefighters responding to the blaze. 2 Orange County Fire Authority firefighters were critically injured and were being treated. Southern California Edison said its equipment may have sparked the fast-moving wildfire. California's financially battered restaurants filed government claims Monday to recover more than $100 million in fees. State and county governments have continued to charge fees for liquor licenses, health permits, and tourism assessments, even though the restaurants were closed down by government orders or permitted to operate with limited capacity and dining. NASA announced it has discovered water on the sunlit surface of the moon. The water was spotted near the Clavius crater, one of the largest crater formations on the celestial satellite and one that can be seen with the naked eye. Paul Haynes is the lead author of one of the studies published on the topic. There are between 100 and 400 parts per million of water, or roughly the equivalent of a 12-ounce bottle of water within a cubic meter of lunar soil. Paul Hertz, NASA's director of the Astrophysics Division, in a statement said, "Now we know it is there. This discovery challenges our understanding of the lunar surface and raises intriguing questions about resources relevant for deep space exploration." Haynes' studies speculated that water may be trapped in small spatial scales all over the surface of the moon. The discovery was made from NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFIA, described as the world's largest airborne observatory. SOFIA is a modified Boeing 747 airplane capable of flying high in Earth's atmosphere, allowing for its 9-foot telescope to get a clear view of the universe and objects in the solar system. It is able to observe infrared wavelengths that are capable of detecting phenomena impossible to see with visible light. The findings come in advance of NASA's Artemis program, which is intended to land American astronauts on the moon by 2024, as well as establish a sustainable human presence on Earth's moon. U.S. Marshals in Ohio rescued 45 missing children and 109 additional human trafficking survivors during Operation Autumn Hope. Ohio Attorney General David Yost said it was the largest anti-human trafficking effort in state history. Marshals from southern Ohio and southern West Virginia were involved with the operation. Dozens of additional agencies contributed as well. The Houston Food Bank in Texas at one point in the pandemic was supplying 1 million pounds of food to needy people in one day and is now serving about 800,000 pounds per day. Before the coronavirus struck, the group's average daily distribution was only 450,000 pounds. Many people in Houston and around the U.S. live paycheck to paycheck and were caught off guard by the economic fallout from the virus that cost 22 million jobs, with 10.7 million that have not come back yet. Nationwide, the charitable food distribution surge has stayed at a surge level, according to Katie Fitzgerald, the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Feeding America. The federal government has helped meet demand with programs such as one that buys farm goods originally produced for shuttered restaurants and gives it free to food banks and the distribution groups they work with. But the money set aside for the U.S. Agricultural Department's multi-billion-dollar Farmers to Families program runs out at the end of October. Individual food banks also get 20% to 40% of the food they distribute from government programs, including ones that help farmers hurt by foreign tariffs, by buying their produce and ensuring that producers get paid while edible food doesn't end up in landfills. That program is funded so far through 2020. The food banks get the rest of what they distribute from supermarket or farmer donations or buy it with donated cash. Marijuana measures are on the ballot in several states that once resisted them. Oregon plans to go further with proposals to decriminalize drugs like heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. The state's psilocybin proposal is still facing some disputes despite the FDA approving it for depression treatments. Tax revenues from drug sales would be channeled towards drug treatment. Legal marijuana, stalled for years in politically conservative states, has found a place on the ballot this year in Arizona, Mississippi, Montana, and South Dakota. Even Republican candidates up for election are running on legalization. Money is an undercurrent everywhere, and many states' budgets face big shortfalls as a result of the drop-off in consumer spending during the pandemic, forcing them to search for alternative tax sources. Marijuana legalization would contribute 4,000 to 5,000 new jobs, according to an analysis by the University of Montana for just their state alone. The pandemic has been good for legal marijuana sales in Oregon, which was up 75% between March and August of this year, giving the state budget a jolt of tax revenue in the process. Saying yes to legalization would save tens of millions of dollars and allow police officers to focus on more serious public safety threats. In the wake of the defund police movement, several notable measures are up for voting on the ballot to reassess police resources, including the number of police required by law in San Francisco and how much money gets allocated to police alternatives in Los Angeles. Several other cities will vote on strengthening their police oversight or creating new oversight bodies. Philadelphia will consider whether to officially end the practice of stop and frisk. Akron, Ohio will decide whether body camera footage must be released to the public after an incident. At the state level, California voters could re-enfranchise felons. Many of these changes require amending city charters, the equivalent of a local constitution. The documents are generally only able to be altered by the popular vote, and once changes are made, they're hard to reverse. Defunding the police isn't explicitly on the ballot anywhere, but Los Angeles may mandate direct investment in social service alternatives to the criminal justice system. Estimates for these funds range from $360 million per year to almost $1 billion per year. Portland has seen more than 100 days of racial justice protests, and part of the public's demands have centered around the lack of police accountability for misconduct. So Measure 26-17, introduced by the city commissioner and supported by the mayor, would put a new oversight committee into the city's charter that would be appointed by the city council, who would be able to investigate things like use of force complaints, deaths that happen under police custody, and violations and discrimination. And they'd have the authority to fire the officers if their investigations to determine that's warranted. In Philadelphia, calling for the creation of a Citizens Police Oversight Commission is seen as an opportunity to pour more funding into misconduct investigations. It is believed that more cities and states will be putting racial justice issues on the ballot in the coming elections. Russian warplanes struck a camp of Turkish-backed rebel fighters in northwestern Syria on Monday, killing dozens of Syrian fighters as well as civilians harvesting olives nearby, in the bloodiest surge in violence since a ceasefire came into effect 7 months ago. The strike targeted the group Falak al-Sham, whose base is near several refugee camps in the heavily populated province of Idlib. The attack was a breach of a ceasefire that Russia and Turkey reached in March, and analysts were quick to interpret the attack on Monday as a strike aimed at Turkey, and some connected the Russian airstrikes to Turkey's support for Azerbaijan against Armenia, which is a Russian ally. The Trump administration imposed sweeping economic sanctions against Iran's oil sector on Monday as tensions between Washington and Tehran continue to escalate. The Treasury Department announced sanctions on Iran's Ministry of Petroleum, the National Iranian Oil Company, and its oil tanker subsidiaries for providing financial support to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the elite military unit that is designated as a terrorist group by the United States. Earlier this month, the Treasury Department imposed sanctions on 18 Iranian banks, effectively locking Iran out of the global financial system and further damaging its collapsing economy. The Trump administration last month also unilaterally restored international economic penalties on Tehran that much of the rest of the world has refused to enforce. The sanctions are expected to create a new obstacle should any future president seek to open negotiations with Iran. Former Vice President Joseph Biden, the Democratic presidential candidate, has promised that if elected, he will discuss re-entering the landmark 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran that Mr. Trump withdrew in 2018. That negotiating process could require unwinding a series of sanctions that Mr. Trump has levied on Iran, but given the number of actions that Trump has enacted, it could become difficult for Biden to undo them. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif on Monday urged action at the United Nations against the U.S. unilateralism as he denounced Washington over wars waged since 2001. Las Vegas Sands Corp is considering selling its 2 hotel casinos on the Strip, the company confirmed Monday. The $37.5 billion company owned by casino magnate Sheldon Adelson is working with an advisor to solicit interest from potential buyers. The deal could be worth $6 billion for the Venetian and the Palazzo resorts. A sale would concentrate Sands' casino portfolio entirely in Macau and Singapore, 2 larger casino markets for Adelson. In Singapore, Marina Bay Sands had a profitable quarter as operations progressively resumed across the resort during the summer. News of the potential sale comes at a time when the Las Vegas Strip properties are struggling to attract visitors amid a COVID-19 travel fallout. With an estimated net worth of $41.4 billion, Adelson is the wealthiest person in Nevada and one of the 20 wealthiest people in America. Adelson and his wife, Miriam, are the GOP's most prominent financial backers. They contributed more than $123 million to conservative politicians in the 2018 election cycle, more than any other U.S. citizen. Adelson, 87, has expressed interest in building in New York City, an opportunity that could arise next year. Well, that will be all for today's news. If you'd like to read up on any of our topics, please see our description below for sources. Subscribe to receive a daily news update. Thank you for listening. Be relaxed, be informed, and be connected.